In Parshat Achrei Mot, we talked about the relationship of the states of Tara and Tuma, and we indicated that in the next Parsha, in Shevi'i, the next Parsha, we would talk about the issue of Kedusha. In what way Kedusha is not simply a synonym for Tara or Tara for Kedusha, holiness, purity. It's often used interchangeably, to be holy, to be pure. But there is the following distinction, and here in this distinction, I'm following the understanding of the Ramban. In the Shevi'i, at the end of Parshas Kedoshim, we are told once again, V'yitem li Kedoshim, you shall be holy unto me. God is speaking, Ki kadosh ani Hashem, for I, God, am holy. Va'avdil etchem min ha'amim liot li, and I have separated you, I've made you distinct, I want you to be different. The same theme of not being like the nations among whom you are moving toward by going into Eretz Canaan, and so on and so forth. But here the word Kedoshim is a repetition, if you will, a summation of what we met at the beginning of the parsha, which began, Daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael, ve'amartu aleihem, speak until the entire congregation of Israel, and say unto them, Kedoshim tiyu, you shall be holy, ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokeichem, for I, God, your Lord, am holy. And once again, at the end of the parashim, you shall be holy unto me, for I, God, am holy. Here, I want to follow the Ramban, and that will give us one direction, one string of understanding the difference between Kedusha and Tara, according to the Ramban. The Rashi says, what does kadosh mean? Rashi at the beginning of the parsha says, Kedoshim tiyu. Rashi says, Hevi prushim min ha'arayot, right? You should not be involved in forbidden sexual relations where you have Kedusha, wherever you have people who are proper in their relations in this area. And that's the meaning of Kedusha. And Rashi is essentially attaching the end of Parshas Achrei Mos with what has been said in Kedoshim, because the end of Parshas Achrei Mos has a list of various forbidden relationships between people in the sexual area. The Ramban disagrees. The Ramban at the beginning of the parsha says that the meaning of Kedusha that we're referring here is the following. Kedoshim tiyu, okay, he says it refers to prishut, which means separation, which means going beyond what we are simply told to do. You can't do this, you can't do that. But the fidati eina prishut hazu lifrosh min ha'arayot k'divrei Rav. It's not the way Rashi learns. Prishut hi hamazkeret b'chol makom b'Talmud. It's always mentioned in the Talmud that those people who practice kedusha, they're called prushim. What is that? He says, Ki Torah hizhira b'arayot u'machalim hu'asurim. Right? The Torah forbids, it warns about you can't do this and you can't do that. Right? So there are things we know that we can't do, but then we would say that, okay, as long as it's not forbidden, so we can do it, and we can do it to whatever degree we want to do it, right? So the Ramban says, Im kain, yimtza bal hataiva makom liyot shatuf bezimat ishto nashav harabot A person can be, let's take the area of food, a person can be a glutton as long as it's kosher. So as long as it's kosher, what can you want? It's what I call gluttony. It's all, so what's wrong? So I'm a fresser, like everything. In other words, you're always asking the question, what's wrong? As long as the Torah doesn't say it's us, so I can do it to whatever extent I want, right? Lefichach, therefore the Torah comes after it's in the end of Achrei Mos. It's told me you absolutely can't do X and you absolutely can't do Y. You can't do them at all in an X fashion or a Y fashion, but whatever is not forbidden, I can do it to whatever extent I choose, right? So no, I'm not allowed to. And the Ramban connects that with that notion with a pasuk in Dvarim. In the pasuk in Dvarim that the Ramban connects it with is in Parshas V'Eschanan. We're told in Perek Vav pasuk Yud Chet, V'asita hayashar v'atov. Do the yashar, that which is straight, that which is correct, good in the eyes of Hashem. So he says, so what does that mean? Just do what the Torah says? Okay, as long as I'm doing just what the Torah says, it's Yashar v'Tov. No, the Ramban says it's more than that. Yashar and Tov is what is called, the Ramban says, is what is called Lifnim Mishrat Hadin, which we usually in English we translate as beyond the letter of the law. And the Ramban explains. The Ramban says that the Torah can't possibly describe every situation that man is going to meet in life. But what the Torah is telling me is giving me a set of rules from which I could extrapolate what I should do when met with an issue that is not specifically described by the Torah. In other words, when you take all the laws of the Torah together, you can infer the way you should deal in a particular case with a situation that's not spelled out in the Torah. In other words, there's an inference to be made from the Taryag Mitzvot about all kinds of situations, and that is the notion of living a life that is Tov and Yashar and Tov b'Yeinei Hashem. In which case, I emphasize that the translation of Lifnim Mishuras Hadin does not mean beyond the letter of the law. It means going inside, Lifnim Mishuras Hadin. Go into this law itself, investigate what you know explicitly in terms of law, and extrapolate, infer from that, right? Infer from that the case. In other words, to know what to do when it's not spelled out, you have to go into Mishurat Hadin, right? To go inside, apropos of Yom Kippur, which we spoke about on Parshas Achrei Mos, then the Kohen Gadol goes Lifnai v'Lifnim. He goes into the Kedoshim, which is said to be, he goes Lifnai v'Lifnim. He goes in and in. He goes deep into it. And according to the Ramban, everybody, this is a requirement of every Jew to go beyond the letter of the law. It's not so clear from the Rambam. It would appear it's only a requirement of Lifnim Mishuras Hadin, is only a requirement for people on who have reached a certain level of knowledge and understanding and reputation. Okay, but according to the Ramban, Lifnim Mishuras Hadin is as I say, it's required of everybody. It's contained in the meaning of Kedoshim Tiyu. That's what holiness means, and that is what is referred to in the end of the parsha of, because I want you to be different. V'avdilaschem mikol ha'amim. I want you to be different, right? Different means in character different, not simply that you do different, but that you are different. Not simply the way you act, what you actually do, but what you are internally, that then further guides you in ways in which the Torah doesn't spell out what it is you are to do. So, Tara and Tuma, purity and impurity, are clearly defined. Kedusha is not clearly defined, but should be clearly understood if you take the parameters that the Torah spells out as the guidelines to live a life of Kedusha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give us the wisdom, v'tahir libeinu liyavtacha b'emes, kadshenu and ta'arenu, in the mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in joy and in wisdom.